and Raila will assist Africa to come out with a blueprint that will bring prosperity to Africa and positive transformation of the people of Africa.
Baba must go to AU. Africa needs him more. What is it that he wants to do to Kenya that Kenyans didn't want him to do? Let him go and do it for Africa. He is the only surviving Pan-Africanist. We have had opportunities to make him a president. We didn't. The world wants him to be the president of Africa. Baba, I say with all humility, you must go to AU.
Ruto amepanga Raila bila hata damu kumwagika Kenya hii. Amemtoa kwa siasa. Raila ameenda kuretire. Raila ametoka siasa akienda AU kama chairman atafanya siasa kweli? Ruto si amepanga tu Raila mchana tukiona.
Kakamega County Governor Fernandez Baraza and Senator Boni Khalwale differed in public at a funeral ceremony, tearing at each other's performance. The two leaders took the time to try and outdo one another, accusing each other of failing in the public service. Senator Khalwale, who is seeking the Kakamega governor seat in 2027, was the first to tear into the governor.
Minaelewa the meaning of devolution. Na hiyo pesa nikileta hapa, niko na jukumu ya pili. Niko na jukumu ya kukuuliza hiyo pesa unatumia namna gani. That is the constitution of Kenya. Ndio ningependa kukutia moyo, Bwana Governor, na kuomba utoe focus kwa siasa ya 2027. 2027 itafika. Utakuwa na mpinzani, awe Ross, awe Perpetua, awe Amng'oka, awe Elsie, awe Dr. Boni Khalwale, utakuwa na mpinzani.
Khalwale, wewe utakuja kunipangia kazi hapa. Kazi yako is oversight, and the constitution does not prescribe senator kuambia governor utafanya hii, utafanya hii, utafanya hii. So Khalwale, you are not going to direct how I'm going to implement my manifesto. I don't need any lecture from Khalwale kufanya. Wewe kazi yako ni kwenda kuleta pesa so that you give us the money. Wewe ulikuwa mstari wa mbele kukashifu Oparanya for misuse of funds in Kakamega County. Lano sai, because you have a collaboration, Oparanya atakusupport kwa governor in 2027. My brother Khalwale, you were the senator of Kakamega in 2013. Ukashindwa kufanya kazi.
President William Ruto has called on the African continent not to leave their destiny in the hands of other countries, saying Africa had to take the lead on sustainable vaccine manufacturing through end-to-end vaccine research and development. Ruto's plea to African continent leaders is as follows. Let's listen in.
As African countries, we dedicate 30% of our own reserves that currently are in New York or Paris or London, earning negative interest, that we make 30% of those reserves available for these institutions, for us to build the capacity for these institutions to support our own development and progress. There is an attempt to try and record that it is much more expensive to unlock our green energy potential. Empirical evidence demonstrate that while it may cost more initially, it is cheaper eventually. So we must package real, tangible bankable projects, green energy projects in our continent as a demonstration of the potential we have and the opportunities that exist and the investment possibility.
Now let's take a look at the newspapers and what is making headlines. I do have the Daily Nation, the Standard and the Star with me. And so we'll kick it off with the Nation newspaper. Why the mountain is restless facing Mount Kenya. Now at the center of it are 3 men, 2 from the Mount Kenya region and 1 who would say was adopted by the mountain. That is President William Ruto. Now it's the region that installed the Kenya Kwanza in power in the 2022 presidential elections, but the discontent brewing in the vote-rich zone more than a year after the polls has the top brass of the ruling party pitching camp there to turn the tide. Just what is happening there? And so the Daily Nation have been able to do what we call ground research on what is happening within Mount Kenya region and what the voters, or at least the residents of that particular area, are saying. Now, if you open to, or if you go to page 4 and 5 where the story is at, it reads, Gachagua, Nyoro, battle for supremacy divides Mount Kenya. In Mr. Nyoro's backyard, that is in Murang'a, interviews with locals reveal a mixed bag of feelings on their unfolding events. Now remember, Gachagua is from Nyeri County. He was the Mathira Member of Parliament before climbing to the Deputy President's position, while Ndindi Nyoro, on the other hand, is from the Murang'a County. And former President Uhuru Kenyatta was as well from Ishaweri, where the famous Ishaweri area. And so Gachagua Nyoro battle for supremacy divides Mount Kenya region. And according to the newspaper, it says, the mission is to fill the political pulse, or the mission they took to go to the Mount Kenya region is to fill the political pulse of the Mount Kenya region. That saw Senator Joe Nyutu previously declaring Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro as fit to be President William Ruto's running mate in 2027 in place of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Now, there has been a mixed reaction on what it means, or why should we have this conversation about the Mount Kenya region that has seen names like Ndindi Nyoro be put into the mats on the table, basically, as one of the leaders to deputize President William Ruto come 2027, as well as the man to take mantle if they make it through 2027. That is now in 2032. So reactions have come differently. There are those who say Rigathi Gachagua is not fit to be a leader. Some have been quoted on the newspapers saying that he's not fit to be a leader, and that he's basically not the man to 2027, but also some say his fight on illegal brew is one of the reasons why they will support him in 2027. Now, for Ndindi Nyoro, some say, he's not yet politically mature to go for that top job in 2027, but they say perhaps 2032 he will be, in appropriate timing politically to do that, while others have alluded to Ndindi Nyoro being the man perhaps to take over in 2027 after Rigathi Gachagua. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta placed his legacy on the line in unsuccessful succession plan, as he had fronted Raila Odinga to be the man to take over after him prior to the 2022 election. So facing Mount Kenya, the mountain is restless. President William Ruto is working to consolidate support in the region, key to his re-election bid. He was on a 3-day state or at least development tour within the region, and this is just many of the tours that he's been able to go to the region. And so we'll be telling you about the jeers and cheering, perhaps. That is the headline on the Standard this morning. Also on the Daily Nation, Cabinet Secretary's moment of truth. Ministers and House leaders gather today in Naivasha for a summit to take stock of government performance that observers say could trigger the first shakeup of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Now, if you remember, the CSS signed a performance contract, which basically would see them, update and take responsibility of whether or not they have performed so far in office, about 1 year into office. So it's a question of have they performed after signing that performance contract. So CS's moment of truth, it could be a likely moment of shake-up for those who are not performing, either switch to a different ministry or completely ousted out of cabinet. So we've had a first reshuffle, which was done in 2023. So could this also be, paving way for a second reshuffle within the cabinet? And so moment of truth for cabinet secretaries, high-profile meeting as Raila's bid for African Union Commission chairperson seat will also be discussed among the cabinet. Also, the National Dialogue Committee report will be discussed, as well as the performance of the CSA. So moment of truth for cabinet secretaries. Also, inside 4 trillion shillings budget to pay debt and to foster growth, the government has unveiled the 2024-2025 financial year spending plan that coincides with mega loan maturities that have forced imposition of harsh taxation measures. So for the 2024-2025 budget, we are looking at estimates of up to about 4 trillion shillings for the budget. Now, this will be the second budget that the Kenya Kwanza administration will be overseeing. Remember, the first budget was 2023-2024 June, and so the second budget comes about June as well this year for 2024-2025. So we'll be expecting a budget policy statement, as the budget making process is already underway at the National Assembly. We'll be expecting the budget policy statement, which basically gives you a brief picture of what to expect in the budget financial year 2024-2025 that could go all the way to 4 trillion shillings. 1, it focuses on debt repayment. On 2, it focuses on development. And then finally, as well, Kalonzo, we will soldier on without Raila Odinga. Azimio la Umoja coalition declared they do support Odinga, and Kalonzo says we will soldier on without Odinga. Also, dark side of Kenya power. Persistent nationwide blackouts have caused huge losses for households and industries. It's the state monopoly tasked to light up the country, to keep industries running and critical services like hospitals to sustain lives. But the operations of one of the Kenya's key national installations have kicked up national furor over inordinate delays in new connections, repairment of broken down transformers, and questionable billing systems, as well as time-to-time blackouts. So dark side of Kenya power, a parastatal that holds state running, particularly industries, hospitals, the airport as well, your house as well, running. So these are the headlines on the Daily Nation. Now let's go to the Standard. Cheers to jeers. Ruto no longer darling of many. Pardon me, cheers to jeers. Ruto no longer a darling of many, simmering anger. Increasingly, the president is facing hostile crowds from his support base. It started in Rift Valley, and now Mount Kenya has perfected the art of jeering leaders in his presence. Has the populace run out of patience with the leaders, or are they just frustrated? Now, according to the head of state, who said, and I quote, "I want leaders to be respected. Heckling is for ODM, and we don't want ODM shenanigans in UDA. We do not want this kind of nonsense. We want a united country." So that is exactly what he said, following the jeering that he saw within the mountain. So that is a story that is on page 4 of the Standard. Now, on November 19th, Energy and Petroleum CS Davis Chirchir was heckled as he attempted to address a congregation in Bomet in Ruto's presence. Now, the number of days President William Ruto stayed in Meru is 3 days, and he toured various development projects accompanied by County Governor Kawira Mwangaza. Also recently, just within Mount Kenya, he was jeered. And so cheers to jeers. Ruto no longer a darling to many. So is it a question of populace, that is the people, running out of patience with their leaders, or are they just frustrated? Now, some believe the heckling is an indirect indictment of the president and Kenya Kwanza, and Mount Kenya residents feel betrayed after Ruto failed to implement campaign promises. Now, for the past 1 month, Ruto has experienced the other side of the region that he did not know about, the heckling and jeering side, and the president was a darling of the region in the run-up to 2022 elections. And whenever Ruto's name was mentioned, women wailed in frenzy due to his ability to pull crowds. But that has changed as the electorate who abandoned their son, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, to back Ruto, now heckle him in public. So cheers to jeers. Perhaps this is basically paints a picture of Kenyan politics. And so that is the headline on the Standard. High fees pushing children out of schools. Education outcomes. A report shared with the African Union shows that a government plan to spend less in education and push parents to pay levies has denied thousands of children access to education, further widening social and economic disparities. According to the African Union, 79% of African Union countries are planning to decrease total government spending as a percentage of GOP between 2023 and 2025. 15 African Union countries are already spending more on debt servicing than they are on education, and this number is probably greater as full data is not available for 18 countries. Also, the AU report reveals of the 52 African Union countries studied, the IMF identifies that 73% are in debt distress or at a significant risk of debt distress. And so high fees pushing children out of schools, because eventually as a parent, a lot of things, or as a guardian, will have to lay on you, pay school fees, pay for, development projects within the school, pay for what they call tuition fees, or pay for evening classes, and so many things that are put up and levied as a total tally to you as the parent. And, if you're coming from a household that basically struggles to put food on the table, you will struggle to pay school fees. And eventually what we're looking at is a situation where children drop out of schools. So high fees pushing children out of schools, not just for Kenya, but also for the African continent at large. Also, women coaches who will not let go of the polls. This is a celebration of just women coaches within the football sector. London woman goes to jail over Nairobi FGM. Trump hit where it hurts most as the elections campaign in the US gear up. Also, banks to pay more for licenses. Joho's 2027 stab rattles ODM diehards. He said he's going for the top job come 2027. So this is the Standard. Cheers to jeers. Ruto no longer a darling of many. Now finally to the Star newspaper that speaks of Ruto team gives audit boss central role in graft war. Nancy Gadungu, the Auditor General, could recommend debarment of unscrupulous entities. That is a story that is on page 6. Ruto team gives audit boss central role in graft. Now, the Auditor General, Nancy Gadungu, has revealed various reports that have alluded there is graft in various parastatals and institutions in the country. Now, this headline on page 6 of the Star reads, Kenya Kwanza to give the Auditor General more powers in the war on corruption. The Public Audit Amendment Bill of 2024 gives the office powers to report suspicious financial transactions. And the government accounting officers, including PSAs and parastatal chiefs, face tough times as Ruto's team moves to give the AG more powers. And that is in the Public Audit Amendment Bill of 2024. That will basically give the Auditor General more powers to pinpoint and root out corrupt individuals in various institutions. In the new bill, Ruto troops are seeking to give the AG central role in the anti-corruption war, and that is on the Public Audit Amendment Bill of 2024. Also, AU honors Mwalimu Nyerere with state or statue at its offices. This is in Ethiopia. President William Ruto at the center is President Samia Suluhu Hassan, as well as Hakainde Hichilema of Zambia. Also on the Star, why Raila's AU job bid has united Kenya's top politicians. We'll be centering that conversation as well this morning on what Raila's bid to the AU means for Kenya's political landscape and why it has united top politicians from various camps. Also, Koskei orders crackdown on illegal sirens. The head of public service, Felix Koskei, has ordered an immediate crackdown on all vehicles that are illegally fitted with sirens and strobe lights. And so these are the headlines on the Star. Ruto team gives audit boss central role in graft war. The Standard speaks of cheers to jeers, Ruto no longer darling of many, while the Daily Nation speaks on why the mountain is restless facing Mount Kenya. So those are the newspaper headlines this morning. So allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation this morning. Odinga has declared his interest in the African Union Commission's chairperson bid. So there's an African Union, and then there's an African Union Commission. So what he's going for is the African Union Commission chairperson. So when we come back, I'll be telling you a bit more about his role, and also be conversing around what this means for Kenya at large. You know, leaders have alluded to him being a pan-Africanist. And so does this, you know, justify, or will it give him the satisfaction to lead at the African continent? As well as, you know, party leaders from various camps have supported his bid to go for that position. What does this mean as well for the political landscape? So that conversation returns in a bit. Your feedback is highly welcomed across our social media platforms on EBN TV. Our SMS line is 23059. Morning Live returns in a bit.
Nairobi City. Join us from the 24th and 25th of February 2023 from 3 p.m. daily. A divine convergence will take place at Nyayo National Stadium. The churches of Kenya extend a heartfelt invitation to you as we welcome God's servant, Pastor Benny Hinn, renowned for signs, healing, and miracles. Witness the miraculous and be part of a spiritual encounter that will transform your life. For more information, call 0796 928052 or visit tumbenikenya.co.ke. See you there.
Every Saturday from 8:30 a.m.
But we should not be afraid to interpret scripture.
Get to know the story behind the Bible. Why was it written? To whom was it written? And what was happening when it was written? Understand, get to know, learn how to properly interpret the scriptures so that you're not deceived.
In the book of Revelation, and we have started to enter into the happenings because these are things that are going to take place hereafter.
Join Pastor Felix Kevoy and his team as they go through the different books of the Bible and give you the theological interpretation of the same.
At the very introduction of the book of Revelation, the book lays clear what is contained in here.
Every Saturday from 8:30 a.m. on The Theology Show, only on EBN, transforming your world.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
That is the word of the Lord today.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Every Thursday from 8:30 p.m.
Listen, every man needs God. And every man needs to learn to humble himself before God.
Enjoy teachings from Pastor Chris Oyakilome.
Here's what the Lord is instructing you to do. Prepare yourself in the Word of God. Feed your faith. Prepare yourself in the Word.
Build your faith and get to know who you are in Christ Jesus.
Feed your faith. There's a spiritual attack of some kind through sickness. Build your faith strong.
Every Thursday from 8:30 p.m. on EBN TV, transforming your world.
Yo, I am so excited that you're here. We're about to have some fun. We're about to laugh. I took my family to Mexico for a week on vacation. The first 2 days were rough because the people there kept calling me a Negro. The third day, I realized they were saying amigo, and it was hard.
watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Nairobi City. Join us from the 24th and 25th of February 2023 from 3 p.m. daily. A divine convergence will take place at Nyayo National Stadium. The churches of Kenya extend a heartfelt invitation to you as we welcome God's servant, Pastor Benny Hinn, renowned for signs, healing, and miracles. Witness the miraculous and be part of a spiritual encounter that will transform your life. For more information, call 0796 928052 or visit tumbenikenya.co.ke. See you there.
Every Saturday from 8:30 a.m.
But we should not be afraid to interpret scripture.
Get to know the story behind the Bible. Why was it written? To whom was it written? And what was happening when it was written? Understand, get to know, learn how to properly interpret the scriptures so that you're not deceived.
In the book of Revelation, and we have started to enter into the happenings because these are things that are going to take place hereafter.
Join Pastor Felix Kevoy and his team as they go through the different books of the Bible and give you the theological interpretation of the same.
At the very introduction of the book of Revelation, the book lays clear what is contained in here.
Every Saturday from 8:30 a.m. on The Theology Show, only on EBN, transforming your world.
Yo, I am so excited that you're here. We're about to have some fun. We're about to laugh. I took my family to Mexico for a week on vacation. The first 2 days were rough because the people there kept calling me a Negro. The third day, I realized they were saying amigo, and it was hard.
The 2010 Constitution, as of the 27th of August, became the rule of law. What rights do you have? What does the Constitution provide? What chapter? What article? What act?
Know Your Law grants you knowledge and activates the power of the people. Join me, Consolata Chibalonza, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Know Your Law, only on EBN TV.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Well, good morning. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You're watching Morning Live. It is the 19th of February 2024. So we're about to get into the conversation this morning. Last week, about Wednesday, we saw one unprecedented move within Nairobi where the opposition leader Raila Odinga declared his interest for the African Union Commission chairperson position. And well, there were sneak peeks into his interest earlier on, and it is alleged that one person behind that particular move is President William Ruto, that is really pushing and assembling campaign mercenaries that will ensure that they deliver this African Union Commission chairperson position to Raila Odinga. So we're about to get to understand what is really around this interest for this position, what it means for the country's political landscape. We are having the opposition as well as the government, party pushing for that particular conversation to happen. But before we get into the conversation, I'd love to introduce my guest quickly in studio. I'm joined by Mwito Mureithi, a political commentator as well as analyst this morning, to help us shed more light into this. Mwito, before we get into this conversation, I'd love us to listen into that press conference, just a bit of it, by Raila Odinga, as well as the UDA party, who as well supported that particular bid and called him a Pan-Africanist and one of the persons that has been pushing for democracy. So let's listen into that.
Consulting widely among friends, as the general said, he is one of my closest friends on the continent. And I intimated to him that if there should be interest, I will myself be keen to serve the continent of Africa. Mainly because as a Pan-Africanist, I believe strongly that Africa is playing in a league that it should not play. That Africa deserves better.
Our politics is robust and cherished the world over as one of the most desired, liberal and inspiring. It is for this reason that we, the UDA party, is pleased to appreciate the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga's decision to seek the chairmanship of the African Union Commission. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga is undoubtedly an African luminary of unmatched capability. We join many across the continent in restating that Honorable Odinga deserves the AU Commission chairmanship, given his distinguished accolades and contribution to the socio-political landscape of the East Africa region and the continent as a whole.
All right, so that was the Raila Odinga's press conference in Nairobi sometime last week, as well as that of the UDA party. So Mwito, let's get this conversation started. Did you see this coming? Perhaps had you heard of it? Had you read about it somewhere? What was your reaction towards that initial bid?
Well, may I start by appreciating being here. Good morning, Kenya. The issue of Raila Odinga's, the Right Honorable's former Prime Minister, appointment, endorsement to become the AU chairperson is something that, we hadn't foreseen it from that perspective, but I think it is something that we welcome as Kenyans. Although I think when you look at politics, that is why they call it political science, and that's why you find politicians studying. It's a science, like I said last week, that it's all scientific. You put one and one together, you get to know the answer. Last week when we were discussing the Young Turks coming up, it was obvious. A time for Raila Odinga to step aside from Kenyan politics had actually come. And you heard me say that when you do one thing, same thing over and over with negative results, it's time for you to think and see how to get around it or get over it. I think it has reached a point where His Excellency, the former Prime Minister, has discovered that maybe he was after his own ambitions, or he's being used by others being kept in front there so that they can also satiate their ambitions. And this is what happens in politics. You either get used or misused, you know. And Raila Odinga they must have realized that I think it's time for me to move on. It's time for me and myself. For myself, it's time for me, for my family, it's time for me, you know, with all my, you know, desires for old age.
Right.
But the young Turks who knew nothing but to walk under the shadow of Raila Odinga and become and get whatever they wanted are the ones who actually pushed the elder statesman into this kind of politics.
Yeah.
And that is what Raila Odinga is going to become henceforth.
Right.
You get the point. Soon as he is endorsed and gets the appointment of becoming the AU chairperson, Kenyan politics will be, he'll be bidding farewell to Kenyan politics, because if he takes the four-year term,
yes,
that means it's until 2028. And having served one term is always credible for one to feel it's important for me to, you know, go for the second term. And the former Prime Minister would feel the same way, and Kenya would be ready to endorse him and back him up for the second term, which would push him to 2032, 33. Okay, that means the elections of Kenya, second term of the second elections from 2027, the second election in 2032 will have taken place. Okay, so that means it will be very difficult for the Right Honourable former Prime Minister to wait until 2037. Thereabout to I mean to vie for presidency. So I think it's a very swift way of quitting the politics of Kenya. And like I always say on this show, that the best way for somebody like of his stature to quit the politics of this country, having taken them that far, is to quit in a very swift manner. That there is no kicking, you know, like the kicks of a dying horse. It's not kicking, you know. You just swiftly step aside and move on with life. That is what I'm declaring, that eventually Kenyans will find it necessary to make him an elder statesman, you know, an advisor to any government that will be sitting in. But when he was running around with his fifth generation, it was not the best of interest, because he was in the field right now with his great-grandchildren, you know, and that was not the kind of a thing that I would like to see in any great-grandfather. So it's time that he sits in such a lofty position, comes back to Kenya and becomes an advisor, where presidents will be running to him in Bondo or wherever and get advice. Now, this is how it shall be. If he takes it up and gets the second term, they will be running to him for whatever advice. And I know that at that time it will not be going for riots and demonstrations. I think he'll be the Obasanjo of this country, and many other elder statesmen that we have had in Africa. So what I see is an exit, and is a good one. And I thank God that he has accepted it, because he would have been branded to be a riotous person, you know, in his old age, which is not good. Had he even taken these next demonstrations and riots that he would have taken, because signs of the government making efforts to make things better, you know, in dealing with the cost of living, are things that we're beginning to see, especially with what happened last week and what has been happening in the reduction of prices and costs. Prices for certain services. So I think this is something moving in the right direction. The young Turks in ODM who could not tell the former Prime Minister, it's time for you to go home to Bondo, are now having it so easy, because it's not them telling him to step aside. Somebody else from outside, or some people from outside, would now help them do that. This is what is going to happen. You already seen the likes of Joho have already declared their interest in the presidency. That means declaring your interest in presidency as the vice chair of ODM. It means I will now begin to fight for the inheritance of the former Prime Minister's position, the leader of ODM. So he has declared both. He's killing two birds with one stone. So he's calling out for a very bruising battle that's going to be there. That is Coast Province. And Nyanza also would like to, enjoin and have their own leaders. And I told you, the likes of Babu Wino are not going to sit there helpless and watch. They will be out there. They'll cast their towel into the ring, ready to fight it out, to square it out.
Right.
So when you see this happening, UDA Young Turks are joining in supporting Raila Odinga's exit. Let me tell you what's happening. The UDA is not really speaking for William Ruto. He is actually speaking for themselves, the young guys, because when you see, is it Malala? Malala.
Party Malala.
Yeah, Malala of UDA. Speaking about the exit of Raila Odinga, one, he's very happy because Western Kenya is now left to a new bargain. Where do we go next? Because they've been in ODM because of Raila Odinga. That means the person who comes will have to consolidate the support that Raila Odinga had already been able to amass from Western Kenya. Now that he'll not be able to comment, participate in the local politics, it means the person who takes over will have to deal with the likes of Malala, who also want to steer the Western Kenya politics. Remember, we have Moses Wetangula in it, in the third position. We have Musalia Mudavadi, who is also in the current government. And Musalia Mudavadi has been in the top seats at previously as vice president. So definitely the Luya community, now the Luya nation, the Mulembe nation, will actually have to sit down and discuss on the way forward. That is a looming politics for the Western Kenya. And it's going to be hot. Because it is going to be so confusing to the Western Kenya voters because they will not know who to fall for. Today, as we speak, as I walk along the streets, I hear some of them say, kama baba atakuwa, wacha tu huyo endelee. That is led to continue in 2027 because either I will not participate in voting, some of them claim they will not participate in voting, in the voting exercise, or they shall vote for the other side. Because Raila to them was like dawa. And I think this is now the kind of politics that we're going to have in Western Kenya. So Western Kenya has a decision to make. You will see the likes of the elder generation led by Francis Atwoli and the likes will try to champion the way forward for the Western Kenya. So it's going to be hot politics starting from now. Soon as he adapts that seat, soon as he takes over that seat, politics in Western Kenya will be hotter than Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya has a challenge for 2032, and what's happening here is that there was that notion that we have had a president from Kiambu. And you see, Mount Kenya is not Kiambu, Murang'a, and Nyeri alone. We have the Meru people, we have the Kirinyaga people, we have the Embu people. So these kind of politics are going to come up, and I know we'll get into that one. But what I'm trying to say is that the fire you're seeing there is about succession, but this succession 2032, but this is going to be succession right now. Because ODM must have a leadership, and a leadership that is intact. So the young Turks you saw, and most of them representing certain regions, will be politics and politics all the way. But like I said, Azimio, I thought would be buried by June, but I think it will be buried sooner once Raila Odinga takes over the position of AU.
So we'll come to the political ramifications of his declaration. However, one of the requirements for an AU Commission chairperson is that he has to be supported by a member state, which is basically means, President William Ruto's government is really pushing for him to go to that seat. We've even seen Musalia Mudavadi, who initially went to Ethiopia, perhaps to start, paving the way and clearing the way for Odinga's bid. Was this to be expected, considering that the government and the opposition have been in talks over the National Dialogue Committee report and the just behind the scenes play between Raila Odinga and William Ruto? Was this to be expected, that something was definitely going to be born from the talks?
Perfect politics is a politics that is guided by strategies. If you don't strategize, you will not be able to make much difference. And strategizing means that you're able to, know what steps you have taken and what to expect, in return. And when you heard William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua talking about seeing off, bidding them off Kenyan politics come 2022, both Uhuru Kenyatta, tutasindikisha pamoja na Raila Odinga, they said it numerous times. To them, their strategy has been there. The likes of Raila Odinga is not the type of person that you would arrest and put in jail, no matter how much you're uncomfortable with him. No matter what he does, you'd feel the kind of support that he has. Definitely you would not go into taking such action. So there is no way to intimidate Raila Odinga. The only way is to cunningly get him out of politics based on his age, because much as you do politics, don't forget that he's a father, a grandfather, and he's an elder. So definitely as a young person, some of these things would actually regulate the force that you would apply on such an elderly man. And him knowing that, he knows too well you can do nothing. Definitely it becomes a lock on for both teams, for both sides. Now, the easiest way was to find his way out of active politics. The current president, Dr. William Ruto, was there when they actually supported him for the after 2017 elections for the infrastructure leadership at the AU, still at the same continental post, on infrastructure. So he took over, and they could see some form of relief, around that time. So they knew too well that the best way to deal with him is to commit him somewhere else and let him do his politics there. Now he'll be doing continental politics by the grace of God if he gets that position, and then the Kenyan politics will have to redefine itself come 2027 and henceforth, because His Excellency the President is now strategizing for 2027, trying to consolidate his votes. His Excellency former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka is also consolidating his support, and I do believe that Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula also would like to express their interest, but not openly, but they will play the politics in the Mulembe nation at the moment, because being servants in the government, in the current ruling government. So definitely theirs will be a bit quiet, but it will be very loud in Western Kenya. So what we are trying to say here is that this is a turning point. Politics are going to change. They knew it. They had strategized. And I remember the deputy president saying, tutamusindikisha, ataenda. So to them, they kept singing this over and over. And I think even the Mombasa talks was strategic. It was not just Obasanjo who just fled into the country and came and had this. But however, I think it is time. Raila Odinga, who has already made a list of, a record of what he has done, I think it's time for him to, just exit the space and inherit the elder statesman, existing elder statesman's position in Kenya. That is now as an AU leader, and also afterwards as a retired AU leader.
Right.
Just like what you saw with Kofi Annan in Ghana.
Right.
They would consult with him time to time. And I think that's what we want to do with His Excellency, the former Prime Minister.
Now, you've talked of Kenyan politics redefining itself. Because this is a man that has been mentioned in every political journey for over 30 years now. He's vied for presidency, 5 times? He's a former Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. So basically Odinga is politics, and for Kenya at least, and politics is Odinga. So how does now, political leaders start redefining it and adapting to the fact that he's not allowed to comment on Kenyan politics, he's not allowed to, stage protest or anything like that. He's not allowed to even campaign for somebody in Kenya. So how do we now, how should we be expecting the political leaders to behave from this point onward?
The exit of a father means the sons and the daughters will begin to realize who they really are. Because whatever was being done by the father, it's for them now to do it. So it's the same thing that is going to happen with ODM politics and supporters of Raila Odinga for the longest time. It's time for them now to start. That's what I said. There are people who are going to come up, and you saw them. You saw the images last week on Monday's dailies. This is what is going to happen. That when I talk about redefining, I mean they too have got some potential, because before Raila Odinga, Jaramogi was. Before Jaramogi was, there were others, in the Kenyan politics. So what we are looking at, because when we talk about Jaramogi, we talk about 1957, Lejko and whatever. Before him, there are others who had started in 1922, still for the clamor of freedom and all these kind of things. So what I'm trying to say is that before him, after Raila Odinga, we are going to have others who are going to come up. Maybe I'm not going to use similar tactics Raila Odinga has used, because even becoming the second prime minister was through bloodshed that took place in 2007, which is not the best way of adapting any position. However, we say it has entered your profile, that's what you are. So somebody would like to become the president in a coolest state, in a state that there's no bloodshed, you'd like to have things coming your way, because there is that favor, there's that support that is not compulsive. So what we are looking at is that yes, he has that dark side. He has the good side of keeping any government that while he was in politics, in check, because Raila Odinga having not spoken, then the opposition has not spoken. Well, that is also cutting himself a niche in the politics of this country, and he took advantage of it fully, and that's how come some people are now crying, especially in the opposition. Where and how do we move on from here? So this is the kind of confusion that is there. But while they are thinking like this, there are others who are actually celebrating. The ones who are saying, we want you for 2027 last week, today are saying, actually they have their team, the strategy teams, sitting with them in hotels, in offices, and the very secretful places right now, planning, mimi nataka kiti ya vice chair, nataka kiti ya secretary general. They are there right now discussing, Kama baba ataenda, mimi nataka chairman. Joe has already declared he has his team in place. And this is politics, and that's how it works. So sometimes we feel like, mtanirushia party, mnanipenda sana, like wanauliza utaondoka lini. So this is the politics, not Kenyan politics, this is politics, The guys who are with Donald Trump the other day were now trying to, find their way into playing maybe the Republican politics top brass, or they wanted to. Some of them are now playing the Democrat politics because they want to benefit one or the other. This is politics, and that's how it goes.
Now, Kalonzo Musyoka is this might have just come at exactly the same time, and I don't know whether it's coincidence, but there's nothing ever coincidental in politics. He declared his bid for presidency come 2027. They held a press conference as Azimio la Umoja Coalition, and they said, we support the bid. He's a Pan-Africanist. He will serve the African continent very well. But is it by design that as Odinga goes for the AUC chairperson position, on the other hand, Kalonzo, declares his interest for 2027 and says we will soldier on even without Odinga? Is it by design?
Not quite. Not quite. Kalonzo Musyoka had already declared his interest to go it alone by 2027. What he had mentioned is that if he gets the endorsement by Raila Odinga, it would be a plus. But he had already declared, I'm going for 2027 presidency, so he's giving it a shot. But what does he have in his basket? maybe by 2027 he could be having Eastern Province wholesome for himself, unlike the share percentage that he shared with UDA, you know. But I am hoping that this time around he'll be able to have his feet on the ground, like I always say. If he has his feet on the ground, maybe he'll gain support that's going to really cause His Excellency Dr. William Ruto to sweat come 2027. 2027, Mount Kenya has the support of William Ruto if politics continue the way they are, the way it is going on. He also would have the Rift Valley, while at the same time, I told you, the Western Kenya will be a swing vote if they don't make their decision and consolidate their vote and become one block before 2026. Because if they don't become one block by 2026, then they'll become a swing vote once again. And that will actually take them very long time to change that kind of mindset that will have been created amongst Kenyans. If you want last minute backup or the last resort backup, you go to Western Kenya. So I think this is not really by default. Kalonzo Musyoka wanted to join politics. He wanted to be in the presidential race, and he is actually going to be in it in 2027. But I'm hoping that he's going to stick to his guns until 2027 and give it a shot. Right. Yeah.
Now, as we wrap this first part of the conversation on Raila's bid, what sort of legacy is he looking to leave behind? Perhaps, you know, if he gets the position, completes his 1 term or 2 terms, what sort of legacy would he be looking forward to leave behind?
Soon as he shuns partisan local politics, that's the time he will begin to redeem the face that he would have wished to retire with. An elder statesman who is respectable. He can only do that within the next 4 years, the next 8 years. If he does that so well, then people will have a reason to begin to say, kama baba angekuwa karibu, angesema hii, angefanya hivi. You get the point. People will begin to see the merits and demerits of your run up to the top. So I think at that time, by now he has the 4 years. If he actually wins that position, he will have 4 years to do the cleanup. Not that he'll be running in campaigns in Kenya. No. He'll just be doing the Africa politics, but favorable also to Kenya, being an AU chairperson. I do believe that the agenda of Pan-Africanism that His Excellency Dr. William Ruto also is championing in the African continent, is part of the leaders that are championing this. If he joins in the foray, then I think it's going to be different for him, and Kenyans will begin to view him from a different scope. So I think the 4 years has got a lot for him to redeem face, because like I said, if you want riots, go to Karen and talk to Raila Odinga. He'll show you how to do it. You know, this is not the kind of a thing you'd like to retire with. If you want to put on sufurias, I mean, you go to the corporate. He'll show you something different, something unique to do, and shake up whatever government that is in place. I think this is not what he'd like us to consult him for in Karen when he comes back. He would like us to ask him, what do you think is the way forward? You know, this is what we're encouraging. These are the challenges. We'd like you to advise us. What do you think we are supposed to do? And this is what the Raila Odinga of after AU Kenya would like to have. Right. Yeah. So he has a time to redeem his face. Yeah.
All right. So let's switch to the Standard newspaper, which has put up an interesting headline this morning. Cheers to Jeers, Ruto, no longer a darling to many. And, initially pre-campaign period, there's a lot of cheering, even perhaps a few months after the election, there was a lot of cheering when he'd go for the development tours, or at least the various tours in various parts of the country. But now an interesting twist and turn of events is he's now getting jeered, and some of his CSs as well are getting jeered, and members of parliament that are pro-government are getting jeered. And the Standard particularly points to perhaps the ground could be shifting for Ruto. Is that the case from where you sit?
From my seat, I think Ruto's ground is still intact, and I'm not saying this with sycophancy. I'm saying it with understanding that, like what we have in Parliament, the vote of acclamation, it is who shouts loudest that makes sense. You may be 2, 3, 4, 5 against 100, but you have made the loudest shout. You know, there were these voters who had actually, some of them who have not come back to, you know, the Rigathi Gachagua fold, who had supported Uhuru Kenyatta and Azimio. And the disgruntled voices are the ones who are working day and night to try and, you know, take advantage or capitalize on the situation of, you know, economic hardship that is faced by Kenyans today. And soon as the government begin to make these transformations and economic advancements, and things become better and easier, like we're seeing today, Mount Kenya will be easy to go in that regard. And I'm not saying it's only the economic connotations that actually bind or guide them into who to elect. No, Mount Kenya goes for what makes their life easier, you know, in terms of, you know, livelihood and business. But in terms of politics, I don't think they're so good at jeering and you know, and cheering. They are people who, if they choose to cheer you, they have a reason why. And they don't leave it so quickly because they have to observe. There are people who had, when His Excellency, the President, was campaigning, that is before elections, the people who had decided, and the campaigns were, within the next 2 years, we'll have done enough to revamp the economy. So there are people who are still waiting for the 2 years. It's only 1 year. But there are people who started crying the second month after installation into power. You know, these are people from Mount Kenya that had actually followed the former president Uhuru Kenyatta and Azimio, the likes of Kioni and his ilks. These are the people who are making these noises and they're doing these campaigns. But what I'm trying to tell you is that what Rigathi Gachagua is doing in the tea industry, in the coffee industry, we're beginning to experience some form of liberty. What discussion that is going on in what they had desired or demanded is that they haven't accomplished exactly what they wanted, but they are heading towards that direction. There was a time when it was not heading to that direction, like when they were being played by the former agriculture minister. They were just, you know, dangled some carrots, and after that they didn't even get the carrot. Today, they are experiencing this. You know, you see, you go to the tea buying, to the tea farmers, they are now talking about minimum guaranteed returns, which they want, and also they would like a waiver on whatever debts they owe the government. So once this is fully done, they'll be quiet. And the government is working on it. The government has shown the will. With the Western Kenya politics, on the farmers, same thing is going to happen on the people of Mount Kenya, who have different varieties of you know, cash crop farming they're doing. So I think it's going to change with time, but the jeering and whatever, I think is very healthy, because even if you are doing good and you keep being you know, cheered all along, you might not know where you're failing. And that is why even Christ himself said, woe unto you that everyone is your friend. So it allows you to sit back and ask yourself, what is it that you haven't done? And soon Mount Kenya is going to get what they want. They have gotten a bit of projects, you know, revived and others completed. So I do believe that eventually things are going to show the true colors.
Right. You talk about the disgruntled voices, Muito, and you say it's about a few individuals that are trying to take advantage of the economic situation in the country.
Absolutely.
But doesn't it reflect perhaps on what is actually happening on the ground and what the people are going through, frustrated, perhaps disappointed, contrary to what they expected pre-2022, and what is happening now? Doesn't it reflect what the Kenyans actually think and feel on the ground?
You know, if I got your question right, Mount Kenya, the politics running right now is not wholly politics of UDA. It's not the Kenya Kwanza politics. It's the Kenya Kwanza politics mixed with the Azimio politics. Okay? Even elevating Ndindi Nyoro to, Ndindi Nyoro's interest would be interest to become the second man in that in this government, or maybe the presidential candidate in 2032 was not really an idea. The idea for the members of the Kenya Kwanza. These are people who just wanted to kindle a fire that would take some time for us to quell, because they know too well it's too early to talk about 2032 when you have 2027 to deal with. Secondly, there has never been a rotational plan of leadership in Mount Kenya that will have you from Mount Kenya, from Nyeri, go to Kiambu, go to Murang'a, then come back to Murang'a. No. Mount Kenya today, as we speak, it has Laikipia, it has Nyandarua, it has those are majority Kikuyus and Masais in Laikipia, together with Kikuyus. We have the Meru, we have the Embu people. You know, when we talk about the Embu people, we talk about the Mbere people. That's a community by itself within Embu. We're talking about Kirinyaga. So it has never been a rotational thing. What really bothers them is that there is some internal politics in Mount Kenya that started long in 1963. That was before independence, the pre-independence politics, where Kiambu was sort of sidelined. But after Kenyatta took over, and now resigned, passed on, then I think 1992 was the hottest time for Mount Kenya politics, where we had the candidates, Stanley Jindo Matiba and Mwai Kibaki. And they thought Mwai Kibaki is coming in as a spoiler. But you can remember at that time, to be honest, those who were in politics by that time, and I was in politics at that time, and I can brag that I'm the one. I was part of the team that that led Mwai Kibaki from the airport. From the airport. I was actually steering the big lorry that was actually clearing the way for his Nissan van that carried him. So I was there on the side mirror, and I was the one who was actually controlling that truck. What I'm trying to say here is that I was there in those politics. I was there in the politics of 1991. But I can tell you this one thing, that Matiba, who had hailed from Kiharu in Murang'a, is now like a reincarnate. They feel this is Matiba reincarnate when we're having Ndindi Nyoro from the same constituency. So this politics that is coming from the village upwards to now the regional politics. And that is why you hear Ndindi Nyoro being spoken about very much, because he hails from Kiharu, and actually the young man is doing very well in terms of service to the people, in terms of transformation, in terms of innovation. That guy has a mind that is way far beyond many other politicians in the country. So he has an edge over other politicians, and true to it, he has a chance to become a leader in the Mount Kenya region. However, it's too early to talk about this in 2024 when we have 2027 and talk about 2032. So I think what there is that there's some people who would have wanted to see this kind of politics take place. And like I said, it only takes a few millions into one's account and begin to declare. I think it's time for the Murang'a people Murang'a people were not going for the second position. Rigathi Gachagua is a deputy. Is not a president of the republic. So you can't say that on rotation, now Rigathi Gachagua, I think the fears is that he might vie. But I think that we can leave that to the regional politics of 2032. What we are looking at is 2027. Do we still have our consolidated votes for His Excellency Dr. William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua? So succession politics of 2032 is good, but it's not for this time. And like I said, it's always good to have space for the upcoming leadership. That means when you're grooming your own leaders, now you know which direction we'd have, or we would actually go to, or which one would be your fallback. So that fallback plan is what we're looking at. If you go to Nyanza today, if Raila Odinga goes to AU, Nyanza will be left destitute. Yeah, they don't know who to follow. Now, unless now they come out so strongly, because if Babu Wino chooses to rise, James Orengo is there to speak. Anyang' Nyong'o is there to speak. Gladys Wanga will speak. Every other person will speak now to take up the leadership of Nyanza. So what I'm trying to say is that it's always good to groom because you center your politics there. In 1998, 2008, John Michuki, either by now design or default, he was used to actually promulgate Uhuru Kenyatta as the next guy to watch come 2012. So you see, it's too early. So after the 2027 elections, there will be that declaration that will be made that we have so-and-so sitting in the second post, and we would also like to have these other guys try out their skills and maybe throw themselves into the dance floor. And I think that will be after 2028.
Right. But is the jeering that is being recorded in parts of Rift Valley and Mount Kenya just about succession politics, or does it also speak on the economic situation in the country because of the taxes and the unemployment rate and the campaign promises that have been put up to stimulate the economy but has not happened yet? Is it just about succession politics, or does it also have to do with the economic situation in the country?
The economic situation in the country, I told you, there is a group of Mount Kenya that started complaining as early as the second month of installation into power. Who are they? Not UDA, not Kenya Kwanza.
So the opposition has a hand?
They're still members of Mount Kenya. When you talk about the opposition, you're talking about Uhuru Kenyatta and his team and the Kamwene team, Those are the ones who are actually making this noise. Secondly, we cannot wholly trust some of the so-called major media houses' reports. There is a tussle right now where the government has decided it's going to work with friendly media houses, because there's no point. We give you business to kill us, to strangle us, to strangle our motives and intentions. So the advertising agency of the government chooses to take its business elsewhere. So if I fund one of the major stations, being a major station does not make you a national station. A national station or national broadcaster is one owned by the government, which is Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Okay, you may have a national outreach, but you're not a national broadcaster. So if the government would actually promote its agenda through the national broadcaster, then they would go for KBC. However, this is not the case. Okay, what the government is saying is that if we give you business and the best that you can do is tear the same government apart, then let's give those who are willing to see things from a different scope, because there are some who are still in opposition. I can tell you, there's some stations I don't watch. Personally, I don't watch. I only watch when I want to hear, hey, let me see what they have to say on this matter, so that you're able to balance your thoughts. Because you want to see what the government is saying, you'd like to hear what the opposition is saying, you'd like to hear the other person who is talking about what the street is saying, what the people are saying, So you have to balance yourself. Maybe I'm capturing some from EBN, I'm capturing some from a station like the national broadcaster. And I think it is always right to say that the broadcaster that the government would use is a national broadcaster, its national broadcaster, which is KBC. And I'm mentioning it because it has no problem mentioning the government, because the government agenda. If I talk about government on water, I'll talk about TARDA. So I can't give it another name because it's actually a government parastatal. So that one I'm mentioning it is a government parastatal. So let's look at it from that perspective. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not mentioning others.
No, wait a minute. What I'm getting from you largely is a huge blame on the media, on the reporting.
Let me tell you, I am a journalist myself of so many years. I've worked for Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I've worked for China Radio International. I've worked for other stations. either doing VOs, either doing translations and whatever. I have been in media, either marketing them. I've been in media. Okay, so being a journalist and a confirmed journalist that time, it means that I'm not just blaming them. What I know is that yes, in our professional code of ethics, we say we are neutral. But as a journalist, I find myself standing next to a voter's box. I mean, the ballot box, ready to cast my vote because we are all voters. Okay. Am I going to vote picky ponky, or I vote because I have an inclination of candidate A and candidate B? So it means the biasment can be there. This is politics. This is politics. And so if the moment you enter yourself into the dirty politics, you become as dirty. It's time the media becomes neutral and exercise their neutrality. And their neutrality is by giving fair information. You get the point? But this is not only in Kenya. Even the Americans who claim to set the standards, or any other country in the West that would claim to set the standards, which African nations mimic, it's time for them to become neutral and do it for the interest of their own countries. Patriotism is something that is personal. You cannot be patriotic as an organization. You cannot be patriotic as EBN. You cannot be patriotic as an individual. There was a time I was working for China Radio International, and I'll mention that one. I refused to have it in my broadcast because we were given a right and permission to edit our story and write it in the manner which you would like to read it out. So where it would come that Kenya, the former colony of Britain, don't remind me that, because it was not a friendly thing that happened, especially having hailed from Mount Kenya, and especially having had a clear picture of what it was. It was not a friendly exchange. Take our land, confine us in a concentration camp, and these are the kind of things, the pain, the sufferings that our people went through. So you don't remind me of such a thing. Kenya, a colony of Britain, you don't remind us those things. Yeah. It's up to us as a patriotic Kenyan to refuse to mention that one. And I refused to mention it. And my boss one day approached me and I told him, sir, we no longer colonized because we are free. Yes, we are free from the shackles. Ngogi Adingo said, we are now working towards freeing our mind. It's time for us to free our mind. You get the point? Yeah. There's a generation today that believes England is better than Kenya because they're watching EPL. That generation ought to be taught something different in terms of patriotism. And that generation is also in journalism, is also in other fields. It's time we embrace patriotism, protect Kenya, defend Kenya, just the way CNN does not wash the dirty linen of the US in public, in their before their cameras. So it's time. Kenyans need to change. Somebody has to say this to the media, and I'm saying it as a journalist. Yeah, we need to change.
Muito. So we've got 30 seconds to wrap it up now. Finally, perhaps, what more should we expect from the government? Because jeering also has an influence. If one region jeers a particular leader or jeers a particular CS or even the president himself, this is likely to spread to other regions. And it will be interesting to see whether this is not just about Mount Kenya, but also about perhaps what the Western people feel, or what people in the Nyanza region feel, or even people in the Eastern region feel. So in 30 seconds, as we wrap it up, final word.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Now, the country is experiencing tremendous change. Recently, you heard about paying school fees via e-citizen. People have complained that it's not the right thing. But you know what the government is doing? The government wants you to pay as per the rate it has issued for whatever category of school your child joins. If it goes to national school and it's 58,000, I don't have to pay 120,000. So why should I defend to pay 150,000 and complain the school fees is high? When the government is trying to have these checks and balances installed in our systems through e-citizen, because my son gets admitted to a school where the school fees, the government is the one that actually issues the school fees rates, is the one that issues them. So if it says the extra county school is 53,000 shillings, but the principal of the particular school and the board members would like to charge you some 50,000 extra which you will not be able to account for or be explained to, I think it was important that we first allow this system to happen. True, there was a genuine question. How about the areas or countries where, regions where we don't have, Wi-Fi or whatever, But if the government comes up maybe with a system of communication that would reach out to everyone, maybe via SMSs, and maybe a system that would work within the SMS system, because we're seeing SMS is actually broadening its also scope, because right now you can send photos and everything. I think within those digital spaces, I think the government also has something at the back of its mind and what they want to do. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot that is happening. Forget the jeers and the cheers. They are good because they allow you to keep up the pace. What is happening, what has happened with the lowering of tariffs on power is something good. But again, on power, I would request the government, please don't go the nuclear way. The West is looking for a place to dump their nuclear microorganisms and bring them to Africa and destroy us. We have geothermal, we have wind, we have solar. Please, let's depend on that one and make power available to all Kenyans everywhere. So I think there's a lot that is going to happen. The finance bill is coming along, and I do believe that this time round it will not be as hot as it was last year, because people didn't understand that it's something that happens every year. So let's hope for the best. I believe the country is actually moving in the right direction, and we will accomplish much. Patience is what we request. Patience is what Kenyans we ought to exercise. Patriotism to everyone, and that includes us journalists, us politicians, as farmers. Every Kenyan should now begin to start exercising patriotism.
All right. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Muito Mureithi, a political commentator and analyst as well, for coming in to shed more light around Raila's bid for the AUC chairperson, AU Commission chairperson, as well as cheers to Jias. Is the ground shifting for Ruto? Well, Muito says the ground is very much solidly intact and nothing is shifting. So in case you've missed this broadcast, you can rewatch it across our social media platforms on EBN TV. Keep the conversation going on X. The hashtag is Morning Live at TV_EBN at It's Nanjala. So that is where we wrap Morning Live this morning. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.